Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day, everyone. We have so far learned about long-run economy, and before the exam, we learned about real economy as well as money and prices in the long run. And just recently, we learned about the macroeconomics of open economies, also in the long run. Now, we study the short-run conditions in economics and how the adjustment occurs from short-run to long-run condition. We begin the study by learning how market works in the short run. More specifically, we will learn about aggregate demand and aggregate supply. And next week, hopefully, we can start discussing about the policy impacts to the short-run conditions in an economy. And lastly, there will be talks about short-run trade-off between inflation and unemployment, as well as some policy debates. Okay, let's begin with this. Remember what it is. Yes, it is a business cycle. All economies must experience the peak and the true condition, as well as the recession and the recovery period. However, the length between recessions in each economy is not predictable. It doesn't have a regular pattern like shown in this diagram. In reality, just like in the two figures here, sorry, the figures are not pretty. I scanned from the book since I haven't got the Indonesian data. Two recessions period in the US economy sometimes occur very close. For instance, recessions once happened in 1970 and then in 1975. Or more closely, recessions that happened in 1980 and 1982. In other occasions, from 1991 to 2001, for instance, for 10 years, the US economy goes without any recession. Not only the irregularity and the unpredictability of the economic fluctuation, from theory and data, we could also easily observe that some variables move in the same direction, while the others move in the opposite direction. GDP, investment and consumption spending, industry production, and personal income usually move together in the same direction. On the other hand, GDP and unemployment rate usually move in the opposite direction. When GDP is low during the recession period, as can be seen in the shaded area here in this figure, unemployment rate will be high. So, what is happening to the economy in the short run? While classical economics is relatively accurate in explaining what happens to the real economic variables in the long run, but as you may recall from our early session, it fails to address the problem during the Great Depression in the US economy. One example of the short-run economic problems. Then, before learning the short-run model, we have to abandon first two of the main assumptions in the classical economic model, which are the money neutrality and classical dichotomy assumption. In the short run, nominal money supply is not neutral to the economy, and neither is price to economic production level. Such nominal variables as money supply, price level, and nominal interest rate do really matter to the economy. They affect the real variables. That is why, in explaining the short-run condition, we will not separate the nominal and the real variables. Hence, there will be no more classical dichotomy. Instead, we build a model that shows the interactions of both nominal and real variables. Central to the economic model here is the interaction between the real GDP, which is of course the real variables, and the aggregate price level, which is the nominal variables. We analyze then the fluctuations in the economy as a whole with the model of AD and AS. Let's now talk about the aggregate demand curve. It shows the quantity of all goods and services demanded in the economy at any given aggregate price level. To understand the market mechanism involving the aggregate demand later on, we have to know at least two things: the shape of the eddy curve, why it is downward sloping, and the shift of the eddy curve, or what factors that could shift the curve. The explanation lies from the eddy equation. Remember the expenditure approach of measuring GDP. Y is expressed like this. The spanning here, C, I, G, and NX are all the demands for goods and services in the economy. Therefore, this equation is reflecting the aggregate demand equations. Anything happens to the elements, whether to C, I, G, or an X, will affect the AD, or the demand for Y. Okay, please focus here. You know, change in component of AD may be due to change in price or change in non-price factors. It is so similar to discussing demand curve in microeconomics. So when change in C, I, G, or NX is due to change in the aggregate price level, it will only shape the AD curve. There will be just movement along the AD curve. Suppose that aggregate price increases. Assuming that G is fixed by the government, what will happen to our AD elements? Well, price increase will reduce C, I, and NX from the following explanations. First, consumption declines because price increase makes consumers less wealthier. That is why the effect is called the wealth effect. Investment, secondly, will decline too. With higher price level, demand for money will be higher to facilitate the higher transaction value. And in money market, higher demand for money means a shift of MD to the right, resulting in higher interest rate. With higher interest rate, the cost of borrowing for doing investment will be high, thus reducing the investment level, and that's why the effect is called the interest rate effect. Number three, lastly, the net export will also decline because the resulting higher interest rate from money market attracts more capital inflow, not outflow. With less NCO, supply of our currency, remember from our last discussion, will be less too. Then real exchange rate will be higher, making domestic goods more expensive, thus lowering net export. In short, since the overall price increase has lowered all the AD elements, the aggregate demand will be lower. Obviously, we observe here the negative correlation between price and the aggregate demand. That is why the shape of AD curve is downward sloping. And since AD curve is showing correlation between P and Y or AD, whenever P changes, there will be movement along the AD curve. Now, how if the change in C, I, G, or NX is due to change in non-price factors? Certain event or certain policy may change C, I, G, or NX. And the answer is simple. The AD, as a consequence, will be shifting. If there is, for instance, export promotion policy, NX will increase, increasing the AD, hence shifting the AD curve to the right. Currently, government may spend more to overcome the social impact of corona. What will happen? The increase of G will also increase AD at any given price, so AD curve will again shift to the right. Next, how if there is riot or political instability that scares investors? In this case, investment will be lower, reducing AD, thus shifting the AD curve to the left. What if something happens to money market? Maybe because change in money demand or money supply? The impact will be similar. As long as the change is not due to price change, the resulting new interest rate equilibrium will affect investment, then AD, and again shifting the AD curve. Okay, that's aggregate demand. Now let's talk about the aggregate supply curve. It shows the quantity of all goods and services produced or supplied in the economy at any given aggregate price level. We have learned before about production and growth in the long run in chapter 25 before the exams. We know that factors of production such as labor, capital, including human capital, and natural resources, as well as production technology, affect the production of output. Since all of them are non-price factors, so just like before, if either one changes, it will shift the curve. The AS curve will shift. In chapter 25, we stop the discussion here. We're not talking about the aggregate price. In the classical economics, long-run economic output has nothing to do with price. No matter what the price level is, economy will be at its natural level of output or the level of output when unemployment is at its normal rate. And with this in mind, we then have the vertical long-run S-curve. In the short run, however, the situation is a little bit different. Aggregate price or P does affect the S-curve. Production somehow will increase following the increase in price. Short-run S-curve then becomes upward sloping like this. We'll soon talk about the three macroeconomics theory explaining this. Moreover, we will see also that the expected price level or PE here would become another non-price factor that could also shift the SRAS curve. Okay, here are the SRAS theories. We have the sticky wage theory, the sticky price theory, and the misperception theory. Despite the difference among the three, the theories end up at the same positive correlation between price and output, that is the upward sloping short-run aggregate supply curve. The explanation of each theory could be better understood by introducing these supply equations. Quantity of supply, or Y, equals to natural level of output, or Y bar. It is the long-run output, plus a certain coefficient multiplied with the difference between actual price level and the expected price level. Or simply said it, Y equals to Y bar plus a multiplied with P minus PE. Here we introduce the natural level of output, P bar, and expected price level, or PE, that could affect the S curve. And of course, the key correlation that is between the supply Y and the price level P. The sticky wage theory emphasizes that in the short run, wage tends to be sticky or slow to adjust to economic conditions. It may be due to working contract between employer and labor. So when P falls, for instance, making it lower than expected P or PE, real wage will be higher and bigger than firm's real wage target, since wage is sticky. Because of higher real wage, firms will demand less labor, resulting in less output produced by the firms. And look, the lower the P, the lower will be the output, and vice versa. One reason of upward sloping SRAS curve. From the equation, we can see P falling is here, and P minus PE becomes negative. Then Y will be lower or smaller than Y bar. According to the sticky price theory, the unexpected low price will affect firms that have set the price level in advance using PE or expected price. They have set the price, but they cannot adjust the price immediately in the short run because of high manu costs. So when actual price falls, their price or PE will still be high, making their products more expensive, thus declining their sales. With lower sales, firms respond with producing less output, which also means lower employment. Look again, the lower P, the lower the output, and vice versa. Another reason of upward sloping SRAS curve. Similar to the first theory, from the equation we can see P falling is here, P minus PE becomes negative, then Y again will be lower or smaller than Y bar. And how about the last theory? The misperception or the imperfect information theory. According to this theory, individual firm only know the price of its output in the short run, but not the overall price level. The information is lacking here. Therefore, when actually the overall price level falls, the firm may just first realizes the price decline has happened only to its output. The firm then thinks that the price of its output is relatively lower compared to the price of other output in the economy. So it is less rewarding for the firm. The firm then makes the firm to reduce its output. So again, following this theory, lower price results in lower output level, vice versa, because all firms will do the same. Hence, again, we have an upward sloping short-run aggregate supply curve. So what's the conclusion? All the theories suggest the same. Price moves in the same direction with output, which means an upward sloping supply curve. All the theories also explain that the situation is just temporary, or it only occurs in the short-run conditions. In the long run, the situation will just be the same and similar to that explained in the classical model. Wage will be no longer sticky, neither will be the price, and there will be no more imperfect information in the long run. With all the complete adjustments made by all firms, price level in the long run will be equal to the expected price level, or P equals to PE in our equations. Therefore, long run output will always be equal to the natural level of output. And long run level of output will no longer be affected by price, or we're going to have the vertical RAS curve. Okay, having understood the ADAS mechanism, we can now turn to the short-run economic fluctuations discussion. The source of fluctuation is clear. It may come from aggregate demand, AD, aggregate supply, AS, or both AD and AS. Because of the shift in AD, AS, or both curves, equilibrium price and output will change in the short run or deviate from its long-run equilibrium. Whenever output and price deviate from their long-run equilibrium level, there will be automatic adjustment from SRAS to get the output back to the long-run equilibrium level. But during the adjustment process, that we don't know exactly how long it will take, economy may experience recession, inflation, or both. Suppose now the first change happens, that is, when AD is shifting to the left. The shifting may be due to policy or certain event. The US Great Depression and the US financial crisis in 2008 are examples of how AD had shifted to the left. Look at this diagram to analyze what happens. We have AD, SRAS, and LRAS. And we assume the initial condition is in the long run equilibrium at A, when Y1 equals to Y bar and P1 is PE or expected price. So when AD is shifting to the left, there will be movement along the SRAS curve. At point B, price is lower than expected, or P2 is lower than PE, thus increasing real wage according to sticky wage theory, and or lowering sales according to the sticky price theory. Both result in lower demand for labor from firms or more unemployment, and firms will produce less output or less Y at Y2. So in the short run, we have new equilibrium price at P2 and new equilibrium output at Y2. There will be adjustment, however, if policymakers do nothing. Labor and firms will eventually realize that the overall price is actually lower. Thus, they adjust their expected price level. Labor will lower their nominal wage demand, providing firms the reason to hire more labor and produce more output. It means the shift of SRAS curve to the right, because at any given price now, output level supplied by firms is higher. Interpreted differently using the sticky price theory, adjusting expected price level means reducing it to the actual level. As a result, at any level of output, price level is now lower. It is also the shift of SRAS curve to the right or downward. Because of the SRAS shift, in the long run, lower price is also responded by the AD. There will be movement along the AD curve in which C, I, and X increase, returning aggregate output to its natural level at Y1 equals to Y bar. And at the new equilibrium at point C, the overall price level is at P3. But at P3, now actual price is already equal to the expected price, or PT now equals to PE prime. Instead of achieving new long-run equilibrium at point C, policymakers may actually induce the economy to mitigate the severity of the economic fluctuations. Certain fiscal or monetary policy may shift the aggregate demand curve back from 82 to 81, leaving the long-run equilibrium unchanged at point A. But of course, to do so, they need sufficient speed and precision to really offset the initial shift of 80 to 82. Lastly, we have the condition when instead SRAS that shift to the left. Similar to AD, the change may be due to a certain policy or event that affects one or more non-price factors of SRAS. Okay, we begin with the initial condition. The long-run equilibrium is here at A when Y1 is equals to Y bar and P1 is PE. When SRAS curve is shifting to the left, it pushes the price level high to P2, leading to a movement along the AD curve. With higher price level, AD will be lower, thus lower the aggregate level of output to Y2. P2 and Y2 at point B are the short-run equilibrium. The condition is called stagflation because higher price or inflation occurs along with higher unemployment resulting from lower level of output. However, just like in the previous case, the story doesn't stop here. There will be adjustment in the economy again toward achieving the long-run equilibrium conditions. Realizing that actual price P is now higher, the expected price or PE will be set higher too by both labor and firms following the actual price. Labor will be demanding higher nominal wage because their real wage has declined, but it then results in higher unemployment because of lower demand for labor. At the same time, firms that have adjusted the price level of their output, making at any level of output, overall price level in the economy is now higher. Both conditions cause SRAS curve shift further to the left or upward, making the stagflation condition even worse. This phenomenon is called wage price spiral. Higher price leading to higher wages and in turn leading to even higher price. The wage price spiral, however, will eventually slow down and reverse, although we don't know how long we have to wait until the reverse process occurs. The reverse process occurs because higher and higher unemployment rate makes labor realize that their bargaining position for higher nominal wage is getting lower and lower. In fact, what the labor currently needs more is a job, not an increased wage. With lower nominal wage demand, now producing more for the firms is more profitable. Therefore, at any given price, output of all firms in the economy is now higher. In other words, SRAS curve is shifting back to the right. Unfortunately, the reverse process in reality almost could never materialize. People can wait. Policymakers cannot let their people suffer too long. Their action in response to these stagflation conditions is usually to shift AD to the right, to return output to its natural level immediately. As we can observe from the figure, such act could effectively return the output level and the employment, but what is hard to avoid is the further increase of the price level. The increase of price level is also now permanent at P3. Okay, so that's all from me. We'll be discussing the macro policy next week. Hopefully it will be easier, but of course after you fully comprehend this video. Thank you.